Welcome back to Have You Heard, the social media podcast brought to you by us at The Social Shepherd. My name's Jack Shepherd, and today I'm joined by
Katie.
And Joey.
Lovely to have you guys on. Today we're going to be talking about the most underrated social platforms for your strategy in 2025, both from an organic perspective and a paid perspective, because I know that's where you both sit so well. So I want to get your opinions on a few platforms. Obviously, we know that there's some core platforms, so I think let's kick off to begin with on some underrated ones that maybe not everyone's testing at the moment in their strategies. Let's go with Snapchat. Katie, do you want to kick off? What's your position on Snapchat and how should marketers be thinking about it?
I think Snapchat is hugely underrated as a platform. I think often when clients come to us with their budgets, they think the core platforms only. So Meta and TikTok is pretty much where they want to focus all of their time and our time and our energy, no matter how much we try to kind of sell in something like Snapchat. But I think when brands have super young audiences as well that they want to target, something like Snapchat is literally perfect for that. And because Snapchat isn't oversaturated with brands on the platform as well, you have less competition on there to kind of reach your target audiences too. But yeah, I'd say Snapchat's good. It's a good way to kind of connect with audiences on a bit more of a personal level. You can have a lot of fun with it. There's lots of kind of like AR features on there, filters that you can do. It can be a little bit more engaging, a bit more fun. And yeah, I think it's definitely underrated and brands are missing out, not going on there. Don't know what you think from a paid.
I'd probably have to agree with that from a pay perspective. You definitely have to have a younger demographic in your target audience to want to use the platform itself. But I think certainly, and one of the trends that we've seen, and I know we've kind of discussed it on podcasts before, is around how kind of the barriers to entry for advertising on paid have kind of never been lower, really, particularly for jumping onto Google and jumping onto Meta, where you've got the likes of PMax, you've got the likes of ASC in terms of campaigns that you're able to build, which are all fully kind of AI run. So it's actually very easy for people to come and run activity on those platforms, which meant they're starting to get really, really overly saturated. So the more that you can look outside of that and to branch out into additional channels, kind of the better off you're going to be. So definitely underrated from a pay perspective as well.
It has a really similar daily usage time to Instagram as well. It's like 30 minutes per day for Snapchat. And I think Instagram's like 32 or 33 minutes. So people are using the platform as much as Instagram. So why not kind of be on there and invest on it?
I remember me and you, Katie, went to a talk actually ran by Snapchat, and there's a huge amount of like creators on there, and they were saying that they would, on Instagram stories, someone might cap out at like 8 to 10 story posts, like frames per day, but then on Snapchat, some of these creators are doing like 50, but holding everyone's attention for the whole 50 frames, which is absolutely insane. So there's definitely lots of routes to...
Hats off to them for doing that, because that is intense.
And I think on Snapchat as well, I guess we think, because we're obviously based in the UK ourselves, but there's also differences in different countries. Like I believe in Saudi Arabia, for example, it is the main social platform. That is what everyone uses, not Facebook and Instagram like they do here. So there's differences in that respect as well. Moving on, let's go over to Pinterest.
Shall I kick off?
Yeah.
Go on, Joey.
So I think Pinterest is very underrated from a paid perspective. I don't think enough advertisers value what it can bring to the table quite a lot of the time, because it's so upper funnel. It's such a discoverability platform that certainly when you're in the thick of looking at how much direct revenue my platform's generating, it's not one that's you're going to be looking at and saying, when you look at the numbers in GA4 and being like, wow, this is amazing, because it's not. People aren't discovering brands and then buying things directly straight off the back end of that. There's very much longer user journey once people have started interacting with those brands that they do discover on the platform. And I think that's so important now because, like I mentioned, like the saturation across Google and Meta is so high at the moment. How do you get a level of cut through and discoverability outside of that? And again, it's Pinterest is great, and certainly in specific sectors, fashion, homeware, for example, food as well is big on Pinterest. So there's travel, yeah, massive. So there's so many good opportunities and niches that you can dig into on Pinterest. And although, as I mentioned, like it is a discoverability platform and a search engine at that as well. They have been getting much better at shoppability on there. They've added direct links on there. So historically, if you clicked on a pin ad, it would bring the pin up, and then you would then have to click on that pin again to go through to the website, which is adding extra steps to a user journey, which doesn't necessarily need to be there. But you've got options now to add direct pin links on, so you can click on the pin when it's on the feed, and it will take you straight through to the website. So there's things like that you can activate to certainly make it a lot more of a, I say, more of a direct response platform, which is not necessarily is, but more leaning people further down the funnel, for sure.
I know we were speaking yesterday, and you said actually for one of the brands that we work with, they're spending more on Pinterest than they're on Meta, for example. So it is, and they've seen significant growth over the last few years. I mean,
certainly if you're a brand that's got high average order value products, like getting people front of mind when they're in that discoverability phase is so important, because you're not going to splash $2,500 on a sofa from a Facebook ad that you see that's going to try to make you purchase it. I think there's a lot more nurturing that you have to do for these higher AOV products and these premium end brands. So it's really important to make sure that you are front of mind for users certainly when they're in that discoverability phase.
How about you, Katie, from an organic perspective?
Yeah, it is definitely underrated. I would say with Pinterest, though, to do it well, it does require a lot of time from an organic social perspective. So a lot of kind of board management, daily pins, you know, just posting once or twice a day on Pinterest isn't going to kind of cut it. But again, as Joey was saying, from a discoverability side of things, and from more maybe that cumulative reach and more so gaining you kind of evergreen and like long-term traffic and evergreen pieces of content, is a great platform, and it's a great way to tap into some of those niches that you said, and making sure that you're showing up in the right spaces when people are typing in home inspiration or fashion inspo, fashion style and stuff like that.
I do wonder if like AI as an ability to generate more images without having to shoot fresh every single time for a pin, you know, for example, on an organic perspective, that's going to just really help scale the volume of pins that brands are now going to be able to do, because it's such a visual platform. Like, you're able to sort of,
as well, there's like lots of different formats that people might not know about on there as well. You have idea pins, so those are slightly more curated. You can make collages and stuff like that. So I'm not sure how AI could help with something to that nature, but yeah, that would be good to explore.
On to the next one. Causes some controversy, but X, where's it?
The big red buzzer button. Very. I mean, it's very political at the moment, and as a fact of that, like so many of the brands that we work with just refuse to spend any money on it. I think it's overrated because of that as well. I mean, I've run activity on there before, and I mean, it's more of a brand awareness platform more than anything else. But even then, maybe if you're in the sporting industry, it's probably one of the only reasons I would say is probably worth advertising on X. But I think, I mean, outside of that, I would say that it's definitely overrated.
Yeah. I mean, we tend, with everything going on at the minute with it kind of and how political it is, we wouldn't necessarily advise clients to be taking an X strategy, but I do see the value of X. And if you do have niche communities that you want to tap into, or communities that we know are big on the platform, like tech, sustainability, something along those lines, or a brand that regularly needs to engage with global news or something along that nature, then it does make perfect sense for them. But it is a bit of a risky platform to be associated with.
So I saw recently that Elon was going or thinking about suing, I'm not sure if he is or not, but some of the largest like network agencies, because they've said we're not going to be spending any money on X. But then without thinking, it's not necessarily the agency's choice whether to spend on. Obviously, they can influence the decision, but obviously a lot of legal teams internally at these large businesses just go, it's a flat out no. We're not going to be seen to be running ads there. So it's not even the agency's choice always if they actually run that activity. Like you said, Joey, a lot of clients just would say no already,
well,
without even getting to that conversation.
I mean, the thing is, there's so many other platforms out there that, I mean, for a lot of brands that are just much further up the priority list from a pay perspective. Like, obviously, depending on what your objectives are and what you're trying to achieve, that takes into account. But I think even from a sales perspective, Google and Meta sit very much at the top of that. But then even from a brand awareness perspective, X is so far down that list that there's so many other platforms that I would certainly look to recommend above that.
Yeah. Although saying that, I am surprised that BlueSky hasn't taken off a little bit more just because of the current state of X.
Tricky to change.
Yeah,
that
habits and stuff.
Yeah,
but maybe this year we might see BlueSky.
On to, I guess, more other community-based platforms. Reddit, Discord. We've obviously seen a massive rise of Reddit.
We love Reddit.
A lot of obviously increase its search volume organically. Google has been ranking it higher. So it's just, flew this last sort of 12 months. But how do you both see those sort of community-based platforms?
Yeah, like Reddit is massively underrated, and it's definitely, we're in our Reddit era at the Social Shepherd at the minute as well. We're really like backing it as a platform and see the value in it as well. So I think it's just unmatched versus other platforms when it comes to community, because it is community-led rather than community-driven. The insights that you can pull out from that is just, unmatched essentially. So you can use it more so from like a social listening tool, so really tap into what communities are saying and then help that inform your content strategies from an organic social perspective. Or maybe there's insights in there around how brands can alter their products to be more aligned with what the audience wants and their needs and their interests. But also it is an opportunity to engage a little bit more personally with your community. You do need to be careful about when you do kind of pop up in those spaces. You have to be a bit more selective and make sure the community is open to you kind of popping up and being like, hey guys, but as long as you're selective with it and you're popping up when it's appropriate, it's a good platform.
Yeah, for sure. Reddit is a specific kind of people. You get kind of the people. I think there's obviously been a lot of growth on there over the last year, and there's a definite new generation of people on there. But you've got your Redditor, like Reddit to heart people that are on there that are kind of very much their own distinct kind of people. And yeah, definitely trying to get in front of them is good. But also, I think where we've got this new wave of new audience joining the platform, there's such a good opportunity to try and tap into that from like a discoverability standpoint, but also, creating funnel activity that's going to drive conversion too. Certainly because of the type of relevance you're able to kind of generate off the back of the targeting options that they've got available on the platform. Obviously, you've got search functionality on there, so keyword targeting is a big thing. Interest-based audiences, but they very much focus kind of the core of the targeting around the subreddits and the conversations that are going on those. So you can put ads in front of people and make it really relevant to the conversations that are going on, which makes it a really valuable tool to be used from a paid perspective. So yeah, underrated definitely from my side of things.
And then obviously yesterday we had our Meta rep come in. How are you seeing sort of Meta overall? I guess let's include Facebook and Instagram as a part of that. And obviously we know that they own other platforms too, but they're obviously, it feels like they're trying to take ad dollars away from Google right now. How do you see that in terms of
it's a big topic of conversation. I mean, we went up to a Meta event a couple of weeks ago, and one of the talks was around the $200 billion opportunity. And it was all based around the fact that quite a lot of advertisers are kind of still stuck in the mindset of last click attribution. Therefore, Google is definitely over attributing a lot of sales, and certainly incremental sales as well. And off the back of that, we're actually seeing a lot more brands shift more of their spend away from Google and into Meta specifically, but other wider social platforms as well. And it's not just that last click attribution piece as well. It's a general shift of behavior too. We've got Gen Z now that are getting older. Their purchasing power is getting much, much stronger now as they kind of develop themselves in their lives and into the economy, which then definite well their train of searchability is through social now. I think you look back to when we were younger, everything was Google in terms of everything that you wanted to do, but now everyone is using social as a search platform, and I think it's that trend and shift which is changing the way that people are thinking, and therefore that brand discoverability piece on social versus what it is on Google is so much stronger, and will only get more and more strong as time goes on as well. So I think we're expecting a big shift in the amount of budgets that people are spending on Google versus Meta over the next couple of years, very much shifting it more towards the Meta side of things, which from my standpoint means that I would say that Meta is still underrated at the moment, because if there's a massive opportunity there to exploit, it's still an underrated platform, although it's still very saturated at the moment and there's a lot of work you have to do to really try and get the most out of it. I think there's still quite a lot of headroom, certainly, than where a lot of brands are at the moment.
How about you, Katie, from organic side?
I think Facebook is slightly underrated. I think because user behavior has changed and people aren't using Facebook in the same way as they used to, I think it's quite easy to kind of, we're just going to cross post to Facebook. It's not where we need to put our kind of time and energy. But I think if you have, it can be a great opportunity to have a real loyal, engaged community, and it can be a real good platform to nurture that community as well. I would say more so from that slightly mid to older demographic, rather than if you were trying to reach Gen Z or something of that nature, then Facebook is just not the place to go. But yeah, underrated in that sense. Instagram, I feel like it's not underrated, but it's not overrated either, if that makes sense. I think it's a little harder these days to get the kind of discoverability and breakthrough from an organic social side than it used to be, especially in comparison to something like TikTok, where the discoverability and its prime role is that kind of top of funnel and pushing out your content to new audiences. It's slightly harder with Instagram, but there is still a good opportunity on there to do so and to reach the right people and connect with the right communities.
Yeah. So if we had to take the most overrated, we go two ends of the scale, most overrated and most underrated platforms, how would you summarize that for yourselves?
Before we do that, can I throw a curveball platform in? Bing. Big Bing.
It never gets talked about.
It never gets talked about. I definitely say it's underrated. Only because it's got...
Is it share of search though? Just
share of search. I mean, in the UK particularly, I think it's around like 90-10 split. So 90% goes towards Google, 10 to Bing. But we've seen so much success in it, particularly for brands that have an older, wealthier demographic, or certainly from like a B2B background as well. I
reckon ChatGPT is probably overtaken Bing.
Do you know what? You're probably right there.
I use it as a search engine.
Exactly.
I will be like, I have these ingredients in my fridge. I want to make this soup. Is it possible? And it will just give me the recipe, and I'm like, oh, that just makes my life so much. Yeah, that just makes it so much easier.
Yeah, it's nuts. So underrated.
Bing. And again, like a lot of businesses, like default operating system is just like Windows, which the default browser is Microsoft Edge, and they don't ever change it away from that, and then you're stuck to using Bing as your search engine. So it's just kind of the way that it works, really. Forced upon you, yeah.
Before we get onto that bit, I also want to add in some other bits as well. So TikTok. So again, it's not underrated, and I could never say TikTok is overrated because I love it that much. But I think it's underrated in certain areas. So I still think it's underrated for brands trying to reach a slightly older demographic. So I still think there is a lot of misconceptions that TikTok is just used by Gen Z and millennials, but it's not. There's like 30% of 40 to 65 year olds on the platform. Like Mum Talk is huge on there. Like there is the opportunity to connect with slightly older demographics. I also think that some features are underrated on the platform. So TikTok lives and the benefit of that, for example. So TikTok is pretty much the only platform that will serve your lives to new audiences, whereas other platforms, people have to be following you to be alerted for those lives. So it's a great way for discoverability, and I don't think brands are using them.
Yeah, there's much more to be done. And shop's still so new. Like a lot of brands are still not anywhere close to.
Well, it's kind
going
of only
live on
a
it.
UK thing as well.
Well, shop right now, UK, US, and one Asian country as well. I think, yeah.
But I mean, like certainly around Europe, it's. I mean, they're starting to move out into European countries. It's trying to establish it. I think for them is going to be quite big. Certainly, since a lot of our clients, we do advertise activity around Europe, so the opportunity is definitely there.
I think they're still a little bit spooked by the logistics of it. I think they think it's a bit harder than it is maybe to kind of get set up.
It almost needs a new team internally to be able to, like an additional person on the e-commerce team or something, doesn't it?
But once you're up and running,
stick some budget behind it.
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah. Start with key products, introduce more products as you go, create bundles, and
well, they've just TikTok have just released a new AI-driven campaign specifically for TikTok Shop called GMV Max. So it's partnering their Smart Plus campaigns that they've just brought out, which is around website interactions and pulling data from the pixel, whereas GMV Plus or GMV Max is using the shop itself and keeping everyone in the platform. It's quite cool, actually. It uses all of your banks of paid assets that you've got, all of your organic assets, and then if you've got any creator assets that are linked to your account as well, it just kind of merges everything all together and will send out everything and anything that it thinks might work, and then just uses the algorithm to dictate.
One platform that I do think is underrated, and I feel like we've said everything is underrated at this point in time, other than X, is LinkedIn. I think people underestimate the virality that you can get on the platform. Like the user behavior on there, people share so much stuff more so than they probably would on other platforms. So the opportunity again there for discoverability is huge.
Especially from like a personal perspective. We've seen like some quite good success from our own personal LinkedIn page, up to like 20,000 followers, which is obviously it's like 5 times as big as our Instagram, for example. But especially like personal brands, obviously, been a massive part. So, and creating that employer brand, I think, can be really powerful behind that. So, yeah, underrated, overrated. What is the most underrated and the most overrated?
I'm going to start the list off with the most underrated, I think, is definitely Reddit at the moment, right?
Reddit or Snapchat, I'm a bit torn, but probably more so Reddit. But we are seeing that it is increasingly becoming popular since Q4 last year. So I think people are starting to see the value of it, and the communities are growing even more. Yeah.
What's
overrated?
Next? Are we not going up the list? Is that how we're going to do it? Or
we could go.
An order list.
Okay.
So what would you say is next? Reddit, then Snapchat. LinkedIn, yeah. I would, probably agree with that. TikTok.
Yeah.
Pinterest. Or Pinterest, then TikTok.
I'm just forgetting all of the social
like
platforms right now. This is a bit painful. But yeah, something like that.
Something
and then
like
then what's at the top? What's the most overrated? Yeah.
X is overrated. And I'd say Google search side of things is slightly overrated at the moment as well.
It's the new yellow pages.
It's the new yellow pages. That's the big quote at the moment.
So yeah, Google will be interesting to watch over the next. They're obviously very well capitalized. They've got YouTube as well, so they will be doing lots.
I just wonder what they're going to innovate with over the next kind of few years, because I think Meta have done quite a lot of innovation over the last year or so and really kind of established themselves a lot more within the paid space. And certainly we've seen the budgets shifting their way. So what Google are going to do to try and claw some of that
That's
back,
what we've not spoken about is YouTube and YouTube Shorts.
There's too many platforms.
I know.
There's too many platforms.
What do you think, Joey? Overrated, underrated?
I'd say YouTube is neither over nor underrated, but I think Shorts in particular from a pay perspective are underrated. I don't think enough brands are advertising on there. And it's really, if you've got good TikTok content, good Reels content that you're using already to advertise on those platforms, just stick it on Shorts. It's exactly the same. And you've got the option to run all stages of the funnel on there as well. And I've seen and heard a lot of brands that are doing actually very well from running just Shorts activity and conversion-led Shorts activity in particular.
Same thing as in utilize your TikTok
Yeah, it
Instagram
is a good way to
short form video.
repurpose and cross-post your content and just get the most out of it. I would say long-form content on the platform is underrated. I think we've definitely seen it do a bit of a 360 moment, and long-form content is starting to become more popular again. And I think if brands kind of hop on that opportunity now, then I think they'll see great kind of results off the back of it. Shorts, maybe slightly overrated. So we're going opposite
Fighting.
opinions on that one. Yeah, I think, there's been a lot of conversations around shorts from an organic social side of things, again, being able to get you more discoverability, more brand awareness. It hasn't quite taken off for our clients in some instances that like we were hoping to, versus other platforms like TikTok, for example. So yeah, that's my
I feel like
stance on
short
it.
form content, you almost remove the platform in a way, and it's actually just good short form content.
Yeah.
Obviously, it does platform nuances, but almost it's just becoming broad across the spectrum. Because every platform's has it now.
Yeah.
Pinterest.
Well, did you
YouTube,
see
everything.
that Instagram are potentially going to be launching a Reels only
Oh yeah,
app?
I saw your post yesterday. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. That might be them just kind of gearing up maybe for a permanent TikTok ban in the US. But they just copy everyone. I want Instagram to kind of have their own unique identity and stop copying other platforms. Like they had another feature recently where you can start to downvote comments. And again, that's something that's a big feature on Reddit.
Yeah.
So it's like, come on, guys. Come on, Adam. Come up with your own features and be different, be unique. Sick of it.
No, I get you. No, it's an interesting play what they're up to, but I agree there needs to be something fresh to the market now, because it is just so short form video, but it's working.
I mean, that app could do well if the TikTok ban does kind of go forward, but other than that, I can't see why users would want to use that when they have TikTok there, and you can see Reels within the Instagram app anyway. So
okay, well, thanks very much, guys, for joining me today. Hopefully, maybe you agree with some of the overrated, underrated ones.
tell us in the comments.
Tell us in the comments as usual. And yeah, thanks for listening. Make sure to subscribe, and we'll see you all very, very soon.
See ya.
Thanks.
Bye.